My son didn't hand me a letter. He handed me an invoice, $600, every month, just to keep sleeping in their basement and folding his kids' laundry. Not a thank you, not a question, just a price tag where love used to be. So I left without a fight, without a word. What he didn't know is that the cafe he built, I already owned it. When Darren asked me to move in, I didn't hesitate, not even for a second. He sounded exhausted on the phone, juggling his cafe, Melissa's new job, and twin toddlers who were teething, tantruming, and, according to him, breaking the laws of physics with their energy. I could hear it in his voice, that little quiver of a son who just needed his mom. He said, "It's just temporary, Mom. A few months. We could really use your help." I gave up my little one-bedroom apartment without much thought. It was small, near the bus stop, and honestly, a little drafty in winter. But it was mine. Still, the idea of being needed again lit something in me I hadn't felt in years. So I packed up my pots, my wedding photo, a few books, and my old recipe binder I'd been adding to since 1982, and I moved into the basement of their house in Tacoma. It wasn't glamorous. Low ceilings, a pull-out cot, and a space heater that worked when it wanted. But I was close to my grandbabies, and that made everything worth it. Each morning, I'd be up at 6, making eggs and little heart-shaped pancakes, because Logan wouldn't eat anything unless it looked fun. I did the laundry, cleaned the bathroom nobody else touched, and ran errands while Melissa worked from home. I even helped reorganize the cafe's inventory system one weekend, just because I still remembered how to label like a pro. No one ever asked me to. I just wanted to contribute. That's what family does, right? Darren would hug me sometimes when he got home late from closing shift. Quick, tired hugs, but still hugs. And I'd tell myself, "You're part of the team. You matter here." At night, in the basement, I'd sip tea and look at old pictures on my tablet. Darren as a baby in a yellow jumper, his first soccer game, the goofy prom tux he wore when he was 17. I'd watch those memories and smile, believing I'd made the right choice. Sure, there were moments where I missed my own space or felt a little invisible when Melissa would talk over me during dinner, but I brushed it off because I wasn't here for luxury. I was here for love, for family, for the feeling that I was needed again. And for a while, I believed I truly was. It happened on a Wednesday. I remember because I had just finished folding a mountain of baby clothes and was heading upstairs to start dinner. Baked ziti, Darren's favorite. He used to request it every year on his birthday. He met me halfway up the stairs, holding a manila envelope like it was something urgent. He didn't smile, didn't say hi, just handed it over and said, "We need to talk." There was no warmth in his voice. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a printed document with neat bullet points. Rent agreement, $600 per month, due on the 1st, late fee after 5 days. I blinked, thinking I'd misunderstood. "Is this—" I couldn't finish the question. Darren didn't flinch. "It's just to help cover expenses. You've been living here for a while, Mom. We're stretched thin." Melissa appeared behind him, arms crossed, eyes cold. "We pay the mortgage, the utilities, the groceries. You live here for free, and that's not sustainable anymore." The words hit harder than I expected, not just because of the money, but because of how clinical it sounded, like I was some stranger overstaying her welcome. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. I felt small. "I help with the kids, the meals, the house," I managed to whisper. Melissa cut in, sharp. "That's not the same as money, Gloria. We need cash, not casseroles." That night, I lay awake in the basement, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. I'd left my own life to help them. I gave up my independence, my space, my rhythm, and now I was a burden with a price tag. Around midnight, I heard them talking upstairs in the kitchen. They didn't know I was still awake. "She's not going to pay," Melissa said. "She doesn't have it." Darren mumbled something, then added, "Just give her the deadline. She'll leave eventually. I'm not running a charity." I don't remember how long I stood there at the top of the stairs, listening. But when I finally moved, it was with a strange calm. I packed before the sun came up. One suitcase, no note, No tears. Just one door closing behind me, and the quiet realization that I'd been downgraded from mother to tenant. The motel room smelled like bleach and old air. You know the kind, where the windows don't open right and the curtains are permanently wrinkled. I sat on the edge of the mattress, holding the rent contract like it was a letter of exile. It had been 3 days since I left Darren's house. Not a single call, not even a text to ask if I made it somewhere safe. I'd lived there for over 3 years, raised those boys like my own, changed diapers, kissed bruises, cut crusts off sandwiches. I gave them my time, my energy, my everything, and now I was no one. I glanced around the room. 1 suitcase, 2 pairs of pants, a cardigan with a hole in the elbow. That's all I had taken. Not because I didn't own more, but because I didn't know what was still mine. I tried to eat that night, heated up a can of soup in the tiny microwave, but it tasted like cardboard. I missed my own spices, my own kitchen, my place at the dinner table. I lay down on the bed, the blankets stiff like hospital sheets. My fingers reached for my phone out of habit. Maybe someone would check in. Maybe Darren had realized. Maybe the kids had asked where I went. Nothing. Just silence. I stared at the ceiling, trying to figure out when exactly I stopped being part of the family and became part of the furniture. It wasn't just about being asked to pay rent. It was about the look on Melissa's face. The way Darren didn't even flinch when I walked out. I started to wonder if I'd imagined the love. If I'd made up the warmth in those early months just to convince myself I was still wanted. The next morning, I pulled out the old file folder I kept with me. Birth certificate, social security card, hospital records from my nursing years. I wasn't sure why I opened it. Maybe I just needed to remember that I existed on paper, if not in someone's life. And tucked between pages I hadn't touched in years was a single envelope. My hands paused. I recognized the handwriting. Mrs. Langford, my last client before I retired. I'd sat with her through her final months, spoon-fed her when she couldn't hold a fork, listened to her stories when no one else had time. She'd once said to me, "You're more than staff, you're family." I never imagined those words would matter again, but they were about to change everything. I sat at the little desk in the motel room, sunlight sneaking through the heavy curtains, casting long lines across the carpet. The envelope was still in my hands, the one from Mrs. Langford. I hadn't opened it in years. Maybe I was afraid it would just be another thank you card with kind words and no weight. But this morning felt different. I needed something, anything to anchor me. I slid my finger under the flap and carefully unfolded the letter and documents inside. The handwriting was unmistakably hers, elegant and firm, even in her final months. "You were more than a nurse, Gloria. You were my sanity, and I made sure you'd be remembered for it." Tucked inside was a legal document, stamped and notarized. A 51% ownership in a small coffee business, Sunlight Roasters, LLC. I blinked. Wait, that name. I flipped through the attachments. There it was, the original operating agreement. 5 years ago, Mrs. Langford had invested in Darren's Café, but she didn't just invest. She did it in my name. I remembered now, vaguely. Darren had needed funding to launch the business, and I had introduced him to Mrs. Langford. They met once. She liked him, but told me privately she trusted me more. He didn't know she went through me. And just like that, I had been the silent legal owner all along. I stared at the signatures, mine, hers, and a lawyer's name I didn't recognize. It was official. I sat back, stunned. The business my son built, the one I helped him fund without asking for anything in return, wasn't just his. It was mine too, legally, quietly, and he had no idea. Later that day, I went to a small co-working space downtown and paid $10 to use their printer and scanner. I made copies, sent one to a lawyer I found online, another to a financial advisor. Then I made one final call, to the number listed on the landlord's sign outside Darren's Café. I asked calmly if the property was for sale. The man said yes. Cash offers preferred. I didn't tell him who I was. I didn't have to. I ended the call and stood by the window of that dusty room, heart pounding, not with anger, but with purpose. They had tried to erase me from their lives. But they forgot one thing. I never signed myself out. 2 weeks later, the for sale sign outside Darren's cafe came down. The paperwork had cleared. The wire transfer had posted. I now own the building. I didn't tell him. Not right away. Instead, I sat in my new studio apartment, a little place I'd rented above a florist shop, and waited. Watched. Let the silence grow roots. I knew the rent increase would hit soon. I'd instructed the property manager to raise it modestly at first, just enough to stir the water. Sure enough, the first text came 3 days after the lease renewal notice landed. "Mom, are you involved in this?" I didn't respond. 2 hours later came a call from Melissa. I didn't answer that either. They went online instead. Melissa posted a video with soft lighting and shaky tears, talking about how families should support each other and how we opened our home to her, and she turned on us. The comments came fast. Some sympathetic, most suspicious. Someone even asked, "Why would your MIL leave without a word if everything was fine?" I still didn't say a word, until the cafe's Instagram posted a desperate promotion. Half-off lattes, limited-time discounts, gift card giveaways. Darren was grasping. I could feel it. That night, I uploaded my own video. No music, no dramatic filter, just me, sitting at a small kitchen table, daylight streaming behind me. My name is Gloria Reyes. I've been quiet for a while, but I think it's time I speak. Not to attack, just to clarify. Then I held up the documents, ownership agreement, building deed, my investment receipts. No rants, just proof. I didn't turn on anyone. I simply reclaimed what I helped build. The video spread fast. Within a day, people were stitching it, analyzing it. One lawyer on YouTube broke it all down, said I had every right. Melissa tried to follow up with another video saying I'd ambushed them, but the tone had shifted. Sympathy turned into skepticism, then into silence. I wasn't gloating, I wasn't cruel, I was just done. I changed my number, gave a doorman at the new building a list of names not to admit, and for the first time in years, I bought groceries I actually liked, stocked my own fridge, and slept without the hum of a baby monitor. They had treated me like a tenant, so I became their landlord. I didn't watch their cafe close. I heard about it from the florist downstairs, who mentioned it in passing while trimming tulips. "That little shop on 3rd, empty now. Shame. They made a decent latte." I just nodded. It had been 2 months since I posted the video, since I told the truth, not to shame anyone, but to finally speak without being interrupted or dismissed. After that, I logged off, changed my privacy settings, deleted old group chats. I didn't need to watch the fallout unfold, but bits and pieces found their way to me anyway. Melissa's sponsorship deals quietly disappeared. PTA groups removed her name from committee lists. Darren's business email went dark. His LinkedIn turned private. And me? I kept living. I used part of the cafe sale proceeds to start a small scholarship fund for women over 60 raising grandchildren alone. I didn't put my name on it, just called it Second Bloom. I moved into a quiet coastal town 3 hours north where the ocean air felt cleaner somehow. The neighbors didn't ask too many questions, and I didn't offer too many answers. I started painting again. Nothing fancy, just watercolor scenes from the front porch, waves, driftwood, the occasional seagull looking judgmental. I cooked for one. I shopped when I felt like it. I never had to justify buying the good butter. Every now and then someone would ask, usually over tea or in line at the post office, "Do you ever hear from your son?" And I'd smile politely, "No," and that's okay. Because the truth is, I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for apologies, not for understanding, not for some grand moment where they'd say, "We were wrong." I had already given enough of myself to people who saw my love as a service. Now I gave it to myself. The quiet didn't scare me anymore. It comforted me, like finally putting down a heavy bag you didn't realize you'd been carrying. This wasn't revenge. This was peace. And peace, I've learned, doesn't always come with fireworks or final words. Sometimes it comes in the sound of the ocean just outside your window, in the smell of fresh bread you bake for no one but yourself, in the space you reclaim, not with noise, but with certainty. I didn't lose a family. I found myself. Have you ever given everything to someone only to be told you owed them more? I'd love to hear what you would have done in Gloria's place. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if this story touched something deep in you, you won't want to miss the next one.